Now it's time for Perform Like a Pro.
You know, one of the scariest things around your house is your electrical system. And many times it's best left to that electrician to handle. But there's some common tools that you can use on those smaller projects around your house to figure out what you need to do. And today we're going to talk about those tools. Now, the first thing we're going to do is see how to test for electricity. We need to see, is this on? Is there power to it? That way you can know if it's a breaker problem or whatever you're trying to troubleshoot. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. One of them is one of my very favorite, is just this basic plug-in style unit. I can plug this in and it tells me, one, if there's power in it, and two, if it's wired up correctly. That way those aren't swapped around and you have another problem. And then if you have a GFCI style breaker, you could push this button, it'll test it and click it to make sure it's working correctly. That's one way to see if you've got power there. One of my other favorite ones are these little pens. These things are really cool because they will tell you if that wire is hot or not. I could come in here and see what it tells me if we have power or not. I have a problem, that's hot, it's screaming at me. It's a really good thing to use, and it's really simple. It doesn't lie to you. Now there's another style here too. This is more for testing outlets on the outside or connectors. These tongs here on the end aren't long enough to fit into the outlet. So don't trust that. You need to be able to get inside where the metal is to do that. That's why if you're going to use that style, go with something like this, where I can slide it in. It lights up the light. It tells me that the power's on and I need to turn off that breaker. So that's kind of the first thing in dealing with electricity, is verify if it's turned off or not, and those are different ways to do it. Now, when it gets into other tools, some of the things that I like are just regular cutters. You can come in here, and if you're going to cut some wire, it makes it really easy, and you're not trying to do that. A good set of cutters should be in every person's toolbox. And then the other one I like is lineman pliers, because one, they'll do the same thing, but if I need to bend something around or twist wires together, this is really good for doing that. And I really like these. This is probably one of my favorite tools when I'm doing electrical, is that good set of lineman pliers, because I can come in here with the next one with a set of strippers and come in here and strip wire. So I can take that out without having to cut. If you get your knife out and cut around that, the problem is you can really cut that out, and that can lead to a short or an electrical fire, and that's not what you want to do. So these kind of strippers are just priceless for being able to do that. And you can come in and strip wire off of these. You need to make sure you have the right size wire in the right hole. And then it's good. And that's where, of course, we wouldn't do this in the wall, but if you're trying to put together and twist two wires together, I can come in here with these and get a really good twist on them. That way you can connect those together and put a wire nut on them. We'll get back to that in a second. But that's the secret to being able to cut wires and do that. Now, one of the other tools that I do like is a really good snake. If I'm going to put in maybe an extra light or an extra outlet and I need to go into the wall, this right here, I can tape the wire to one side, I'll fish it through, tape the wire to the other side, pull it back through, and that gets me through all those different wall cavities and get around there. Now, if I'm really trying to troubleshoot and I'm working on a project where, let's say I've got a pump motor that's not working for my well or something like that I'm trying to verify, a good multimeter is something that's great. And there's multiple things you can do with this. If I'm trying to see if this is hot, I can clamp this around it and it's going to tell me what's going on with that wire. But really, the secret is using these is we have all the different settings on here. I can measure resistance to see if a fuse is blown. I can go through and test voltage. I can check amps. I can do all these different things with this. And really, you have to get to know each one of these tools because they run a lot differently. But when you get to know that, you really can tell what's going on, anything around your house, even in your car, if you're working on electrical. Now, when it comes to connecting things, this is where you need to be really careful. And I'm going to show you this right here. There's lots of different ways to connect wires together. Always follow your local building code with that. When I get into this here, there's a couple things that I like to be able to do with these, depending on what's inside the box. When I get into here, you can use a regular wire nut. That's probably the most old school way to do it. But there are now these new push connect fittings as well. And if you talk to the electricians, some love them, some hate them. Some of them just like the old school wire nuts. But sometimes when you're in a tight box situation where you got a lot of wires and a switch, you want to be able to connect, push it together, and it's really tight, and you can get things in really tight and clean that way. That ends up working really well to connect everything together, and that way you got a safe connection. So that's some of the tools that you can use today in working around the house. But remember, when it's all said and done, if you're over your head, just call in the expert.